Hello,
Thank
everyone. Thank you so much for joining the second concurrent session, Room 1. Dr. Kaçar is going to give her speech on EFL pre-service teachers' online flipped task design and universal design for learning towards a more engaging and inclusive learning environment. The floor is yours, Işıl Hocam.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome you all. Thank you for coming. So I'll be sharing with you the results, partial results of our ongoing Flipped Impact Erasmus Plus project, and in relation to flipped task design and the UDL Universal Design Learning Principles. Now I'd like to share my screen first. Okay, by the way, I'm from Middle East Technical University, the Department of Foreign Language Education. My area of specialization is ELT methodology, and currently I'm heavily involved in pre-service teacher education as well. Now, I'd like to keep the introductory part and the literature review short so that we can have time for questions. Now, just a brief introduction to flipped learning. So it's an innovative technology-enhanced instructional model in computer-assisted language learning. It's a student-centered approach characterized by deep student engagement in content, collaborative activities, peer interaction, and peer learning, with an emphasis on thinking skills, particularly critical thinking skills development, from the lower order to higher order thinking skills, task or project-based learning, formative assessment, and ongoing feedback. And if you look at this visual, so in the flipped instruction, actually, the out-of-class time and in-class time are reversed. So students prepared to participate the in-class activities at home, and in-class time is used beneficially through active guided learning activities in class with the supervision of the teacher. And as out of class, the students can do further practice to extend their learning in the in-class session. Now, the main features, as I've just talked to you about, reversing the in-class time with the out-of-class time. In out-of-class, students are expected to establish conceptual knowledge through pre-class materials in a self-directed manner for preparation for the in-class activities. And in class, students are engaged in the application of the key concepts. They make sense of the materials by making by means of active learning activities instead of being passive learners or traditional lecture listeners. So there is a shift in emphasis from knowledge transmission to knowledge construction, with a focus on students' higher order thinking skills. Now, when we look at flipped learning, or whenever we mention flipped learning, I think we can't do without mentioning Bloom's taxonomy. So in flipped learning actually is designed based on the Bloom's revised taxonomy. So as we can see in the figure, we have we indicate both the traditional classroom and the flipped classroom activities. So in flipped classrooms, students do independent studies out of class. So these stages correspond to the remembering, understanding, and applying stages. And then in-class time is spent more actively and in a more engaging fashion. So these stages actually correspond to the analyzing, evaluating, and the creating stages. And having set the background, I'd love to Yeah, move on to the success of flipped teaching. So the factors crucial for the success of flipped teaching. So the success of any flipped teaching endeavor mainly based on four major conditions. The first one is creating a flexible learning environment, allowing learner autonomy. The second one is the allocation of more class time for student-centered learning. And also, teachers' competence of designing pre-class and in-class activities is also crucial. Apart from these three, we can also say that students' relevant experiences of online learning play an important role in the success of flipped teaching. Now, I'd like to move on with the challenges with the flipped teaching. So, flipped teaching can be considered an innovative approach, and there are lots of benefits attributed to it. But there are also challenges with flipped teaching or flipped learning approach as well, reported in the literature. So the teacher-related challenges could be, when it comes to teacher-related challenges, we can talk about the teacher's beliefs in teacher-directed practices rather than student-centered interactions. And sometimes teachers may be reluctant to take on extra work because developing pre-class materials such as instructional videos may require a lot of time for the teachers besides their lesson preparation processes. And also designing and fitting different parts of flipped teaching, such as the pre-class and in-class activities, and having a smooth transition between both parts requires a lot of time as well. And also teachers' relatively low technological self-efficacy might be an impediment in teachers' willingness to apply flipped approach. And also we can also incorporate the lack of institutional support. That might be also a factor affecting the success of flipped teaching. Now, when it comes to students' challenges, we can say there are three main challenges. Mainly their reluctance to watch these video lectures or to do pre-class activities, and their educational background, passive learning habits, for example, might also pose a challenge for them, and also their inadequate digital literacy to manage flipped learning. Because flipped learning is actually a mindset. So it takes a while for students just to get used to flipped learning methods, and also they need to be familiarized with the tools and how just for example answer the questions in interactive videos, and they also need to be introduced to the basic tool knowledge, or if we're just using an LMS system. So we need to make sure that learners are familiar with this LMS system and they can use it effectively. And now, actually, I'd like to focus more on the synchronous online flipped learning approach that we have used in our study. So this model is relatively new. Actually, Flip Impact has been around for more than 2 decades, but this synchronous online flipped learning approach was developed in the very recently. It was developed by Marshall in 2017 and Marshall and Buitrago. And it mainly aims to align flipped learning principles with online instruction. So we call it, they call it SOFLA in abbreviation. So SOFLA mirrors flipped learning. Namely, we have said that out-of-class work is replaced with in-class work in flipped learning approach. And now in SOFLA, out-of-class work now moves to the asynchronous phase. And in-class work is completed in synchronous class sessions when the teacher and students are present. The key advantage to implementing SOFLA is it replicated most part of flipped learning instruction, the interactive and dynamic nature of learning, when teacher-led activities are moved out of class. And by meeting synchronously on a regular basis, the teachers and students can distinguish between the in-class and the synchronous learning context. And they are also able to participate in real-time class sessions in person and interact with their peers. And the teacher's roles in online synchronous flipped learning approach, the teacher's role is actually vital in that he or she needs to ensure that this online instruction is well designed and the students' learning outcomes are achieved. So in SOFLA, the role of the teacher is pivotal, but not central. And it is powerful, but not controlling and spontaneous in the context of careful planning. For all the learning activities, the teacher observes students' interactions, provides feedback, assesses their work, and teacher also maintains the teacher presence that offers support and validation of students' efforts. Now, I'd like to move on to the universal design for learning. So in our study, we just looked at the alignment between the flipped learning task design and the universal task design, and how the pre-service teachers align both in their lesson plans. So basically, when we talk about the universal design for learning, the diverse learner profiles of the 21st century actually reminded us of the need to design a more inclusive curriculum and to incorporate inclusive practices into learning environments more and more to facilitate learners' educational progress. A universal design for learning is considered a pedagogical approach to respond to this challenge. So the key idea is to remove all the barriers that didactic teaching methods can create, and it aims to provide everybody with access to learning. So we can see it more clearly in this figure. Universal design learning has three main principles. One of them is the multiple means of representation and multiple means of action and expression, and also multiple means of engagement. Actually, it helps us, teachers and teacher educators, in creating a flexible curriculum, including different alternatives to present, implement, and evaluate content. And most important of all is Anıl Hocam. Okay, more important.
Last 5 minutes, I would like to remind that.
Okay, thank you. So it just provides students, teacher educators, a roadmap for designing effective, inclusive, and flexible learning environments. Actually, the flexibility and attention to the accessibility are the characteristics of flipped classrooms and UDL methodologies. So there is actually currently a research gap in teachers' perspectives of flipped task design their challenges, and also the alignment between UDL principles and flipped learning is also under-researched. The aim of our study is to investigate the EFL pre-service teachers' perspective regarding online flipped task design process, their challenges in this design process, and the contribution of this online task design engagement to their pedagogical and digital competence. We also had a look at the alignment between their flipped lesson plans and the UDL principles. Now, the participants, 4 senior EFL pre-service teachers in a practicum course, participated in this study. They were involved in an Erasmus Plus project called Flipped Impact. They were all female with a range of 21 and 23, with an advanced level of proficiency with no prior experience for flipped teaching. They designed and implemented flipped grammar lessons for 8th graders at a private middle school for 12 weeks. And data collection, we use teacher logs, flipped lesson plans, reflective journals, and semi-structured interviews. Now, you can see a snapshot of our teacher logs, the questions. And this is for reflective journal questions. And we also use their flipped lesson plans. And data analysis, we use content analysis. And I have actually some activities, but we don't have time. But if you could email me, I would love to send these activities to you. And about the findings, so mainly pre-service teachers described the flipped task design process as innovative, flexible, and reflective. So as you can see, I have highlighted the words in the quotation, and they just saw it as a serious asset for their preparation. And also they exhibited raised awareness towards the material preparation process. So they learned that less is more. So I really like this motto. And they also exhibited raised awareness towards the use of authentic materials and differentiation. And they also raised their awareness towards the importance of authentic materials in promoting student engagement. And also they raise their awareness towards the facilitator role of the teacher and the importance of student autonomy in the lesson. And they also exhibited multiple roles of a flipped teacher in their classes. And also they just they raise awareness towards different types of assessment for students. Mainly, they learned how to embed formative assessment techniques into their lessons. And their challenges are they had difficulty actually preparing an engaging lesson plan for students. Particularly, they had difficulty in aligning the pre-class and in-class activities. But they said after a while, it became easier to design to achieve this alignment between pre-class and in-class activities. And they also highlighted the importance of feedback for pre-service teachers on lesson plan preparation. Actually, they said, while trying to cope with these challenges, the teacher's feedback was very useful. And yes, hocam, I will be finishing in a few minutes. And the contribution of the task design for the pedagogical and digital competence, we have seen a considerable improvement in their technological, pedagogical content knowledge. And we also witness a considerable improvement in pre-service teachers' agency and enhanced technological knowledge. And as to the alignment of the flipped lessons with UDL principles, so we have seen that there's a great deal of alignment in terms of engagement through personalization and contextualization, use of authentic materials, differentiation, and in terms of representation, the use of infographics, audio-video materials, the use of images, animes, and cartoon characters, and multiple means of action and expression, the use of storyboards, comic strips, animations, and role-playing. And in conclusion, the findings suggested that despite some pedagogical challenges regarding the online flip task design, the pre-service teachers indicated a boost in their self-efficacy, agency, and autonomy. They also reported enhanced digital competence. So it was found conducive to learner engagement, differentiation, and creating an inclusive classroom environment. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Işıl Hocam, for this informative talk. That was truly informing and thought-provoking. Maybe we could get some questions because we have 8 minutes for the next session to begin.
Thank you. Now I can also write my email for further contact, maybe.
That'll be great, Hocam. And in the chat, people are thanking you, Işıl Hocam, currently.
Thank you. Thank you. I just had to be in a rush as it is a kind of conference presentation. So, and by the way, we're waiting everybody for our conference multiplier event that will take place on the 3rd of December. So you can just have a look at our project website for more information.
Okay. Maybe you can give the website of that organization as well. That'll be great.
Yeah, sure. So we are organizing the event, actually.
Hocam, Tamar is asking a question whether you're planning to continue flip learning after the pandemic.
Yes, actually, I mean, not on a kind of wholesale basis, but you know, to some extent, and I'm also training pre-service teachers, and I'm just introducing this designing and creating online materials course for undergrads. So I will be informing them, and I will be promoting this as well, because I believe it has a lot of beneficial features, and also in the future, you know, we will end up adopting a blended learning approach towards teaching.
Thank you. Thank you.
My institution is Middle East. Yes, any other questions?
Thank you so much, Işıl Hocam.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Merve Savaşçı of Sakarya University, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. Sorry, I was teaching between 9 and 11, so I couldn't have a chance to watch the plenary, but I think I missed too much. I hope everyone is great, and today I'm here to share with you the findings of a study that we conducted with my dear colleague, Gizem Akçor. She is unfortunately not with us today because she's busy with teaching, but if you have any questions, we would be happy to receive them through email too, or you can ask them at the end of the session. In this study, we investigated actually whether we can promote ELT writing, because, you know, teaching it is a very difficult process. You know, providing feedback is another difficult process. So we thought, how can we simplify it? How can we make it more effective? So this study is all about it. Here is the outline that I'm going to follow. And as you know, If you have been teaching writing, you would know that feedback actually is a very important process in the second language writing classes. Actually, through feedback, we provide the information about, and we provide a response to learners' production, right? So according to Sadler, feedback has two major functions. It is actually a performance statement where we focus on the strengths and weaknesses of the learner's work. We are also providing students with advice or suggestions regarding what they could have done differently to produce a better work. So it is a complicated practice though, right? I think we all agree upon it. We encounter several problems in feedback processes, at least I do. I have encountered many. Actually, those processes do not seem to achieve the aim of writing tasks due to several reasons, as Günseli and Bostich indicate. For example, feedback provision is time-consuming for instructors, isn't it? Who would disagree with that, right? Teachers cannot make sure of its effectiveness, right? You spend hours trying to provide feedback, that's okay, but we can't be really sure what the students are doing with that feedback. Or students might complain about not receiving timely, detailed, or comprehensible feedback, especially if you are doing it indirectly. So as a teacher, personally speaking, I don't spoon feed the students. For example, I try to use codes. I try to push the students to think about it, but some students do not make sense of it, right? So comprehensible feedback is another issue. Emotion, identity, power, authority, subjectivity, all of these seem to affect the feedback processes, right? Students' emotions are affected considerably in feedback processes. For example, if you return a paper full of red marks, like red ink, okay, so they would probably be demotivated, they would feel bad about it, right? So here is another thing, like feedback, no matter how detailed, subjective, or timely it can be, it doesn't necessarily guarantee students' understanding or uptake of information. Or there might be lack of clarity or misinterpretation of feedback. So misinterpretation is another problem, I think. So not understanding is one problem, misunderstanding is another problem. So to deal with such problems and promote ELT writing competencies, in the last few years, decades actually, we have new directions for writing instructions and practices. So feedback, how do we provide feedback most of the time in SLW classes? We generally provide written comments, and if we have time, if we are lucky enough, we have students conferences, face-to-face teacher-student conferences. So we said, why don't we integrate technology into these writing processes? So we can eliminate these problems, maybe, and we can help the students more. And that's why we said screencasting might be used for feedback purposes. What is screencasting? Actually, it's a kind of tool that captures your monitor activities, that is real-time on-screen activities actually, and you can provide you can record the audio as well. I'm sure that you have seen some tutorials, but like they are used for different purposes. But now we said, why don't we use it for feedback purposes? There are several software packages available in the market: Bandicam, Camtasia, Jing, Movavi, Screen Recorder, OBS Studio, Screencast-O-Matic. For example, like if you have heard them, if you haven't heard them, you can check them too. So when the literature is is not mature here actually, because it has become just prevalent. And there are some studies showing that it contributes to learners' writing, and it is preferred over other feedback types due to many reasons. For example, let me show them to you very quickly. The literature shows that through screencasting, teachers can provide more in-depth, elaborate, clear, and personalized feedback. And it's kind of a conversational communication between you and the students. And you might have better teacher-student connections, and a sense of instructor presence is there. And much more memorable feedback is another advantage or affordance of Screencast. However, there are also some studies, for example, Ali and Henderson and Phillips studies. They say that it might be time-consuming, the revision process, and some technical difficulties might create some problems and might be anxiety-provoking for some teachers and especially students. And we have the constraints of trial versions too. So we investigated the affordances and constraints of these tools, I mean Screencast, and as perceived by students. Now let me talk about the methodology. We adopted a convergent mixed method design by collecting qualitative and quantitative data. The participants were 34 Turkish university students at a Turkish state university. They were mostly second graders, and they were taking a class where they had to prepare some reading assignments, and we provided feedback. We employed them through convenience sampling, and we made sure that we have their consent before the study. So how did we collect the data? Let me talk about it. We collected data through 3 tools. We adopted multimodal assessment student survey. It has 20 items, 4 categories, like focusing on attending and engagement, incorporation of revision, feedback quality and quantity, and preference. And we used Cunningham's follow-up and final surveys, including 6 items. It was ratings. I'm going to show them to you in a minute. And we asked open-ended questions, so we collected qualitative data through these. Participants received feedback over 4 writing assignments in total through screencast videos. The instructors provided both spoken and written comments. By highlighting the parts being spoken about and making immediate changes, we just followed the Microsoft Word's track changes tool application. In total, the duration of the videos range from 40 minutes, approximately 40 minutes, to 100 minutes, depending on the seriousness of the problems and the content of the writing product. And it totaled approximately, they totaled 34 hours, 20 minutes, to nearly 2,000 minutes. So this is what we did. So I'm sure that most of you are familiar with this, I mean, track changes, but while we are doing this, we talked about it and we recorded our screen while doing so. And we shared the videos with students rather than giving them this, Word document only. We analyzed the quantitative data for descriptive statistics and frequency analysis, and qualitative data were analyzed through inductive content analysis. As both researchers, we made sure that we had inter-rater reliability. We analyzed all the data together in an inductive fashion. Let me talk about the findings. Now, students found it very useful when compared to traditional text-only feedback. They stated that it provided them a better understanding of how to revise, organize, and structure their writing, and they could create stronger arguments and elaborate better in their follow-up drafts. So here are the findings. You can see, for example, you can see item 1, 2, 8, 9, and 10. Most of the students, nearly all the students, thought that They paid more attention to the instructor's comment with video feedback. So better understanding the revision processes or mechanics, for example, language use, or how to structure my paper, like they understood it better, how to structure their paper. I received more feedback. I mean, the amount of feedback they thought was more when compared to text-only feedback. Their comprehension was better, and so they understood things better here, as you can see. And the last item, I think it would be a message for all of us here. I would recommend that other writing instructors use feedback, video feedback, as opposed to traditional written comments in their classes, and nearly all the participants agreed with that. We also asked participants how many times they watched the video feedback, and as you can see, the majority watched it at least 2 or 3 times on average. For example, I think this finding is important. We also asked participants how much time they spent looking at their feedback. And here, none, I didn't open it. As you can see, the response rate is 0. So when you think about traditional written feedback, what happens mostly? You spend hours trying to provide feedback, you give it back to the students, they have a look at their score and they put it away, right? So like they don't necessarily, some students do not necessarily check the feedback that in detail. So as you can see, like most of the participants watched the whole video, and they how long it took for them, like the majority said 10 to 20 minutes, maybe more than that. So like it's equally distributed here actually. So we asked participants how helpful they found this type of feedback, and the majority found it very helpful. Besides, we asked them to rate each kind of feedback they received, only traditional, written feedback and video feedback. As you can see, the response rate here for very helpful, and the majority thinks that, the majority of the participants think that the video feedback, screencast mediated feedback, was very helpful when compared to traditional feedback. Regarding its easiness, again, video feedback was rated more here. They found it very easy to understand, but here only traditional feedback here, like somewhat difficult. This is what the majority said. Would you want more feedback like this in the future? Was another question that we directed to the students. And as again, you see video feedback is the popular one. How would you like to use this feedback in the future? How likely would you be to use this feedback in the future? So here, video feedback again is more popular here. The qualitative data seem to concur with quantitative data as well. So the majority said that this kind of feedback was useful, more clear, elaborate and detailed, more effective and much better, more informative, more memorable. So they could get a clear understanding of what the teacher asks for. And some said that they felt like in the classroom, like as if they were having a chat with the teacher, and they could have a chance to replay it, whenever they have a problem. Even if you have student conferences, teacher and student conferences, okay, so you have the meeting, after the meeting, everything might fade away, they might forget, but with the video feedback, they have this all the time. Okay, you can see the
Your last 4 minutes, just to remind.
4 minutes, I'm sorry. Here are the student quotations. I'm a little bad at time management, sorry for that. And here, some felt more carried by the instructor. As you can see, like, they understood better. Here are the constraints. The majority didn't encounter any problems, but some technical problems, and some wanted to contact the teacher immediately but couldn't, like while listening to watching the video. They wanted to provide a response to the teacher, but they couldn't. So this wasn't that prevalently stated. Demoralized, but like one student said, I got demoralized some of the time, but receiving written feedback could be demoralizing too, demotivating too. So we think that considering all the findings, it can be a very useful tool to promote ELT writing processes. And we suggest that teachers' experiences can be investigated and experimental studies can be conducted, and more participants, different contexts would be great. So I would like to thank you for listening to me. And if you have any questions, I think we're running out of time. If you have any questions, you can ask them right now. I don't know whether it would be okay, but like you can email them to us as well.
We still have 2 minutes to take questions.
Okay.
Thank you for this wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
I think the technique is really effective as well. It shows the process, maybe like process of correcting rather than the last version of correction papers.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Like, so they see that the teacher is really reading every single line, and just, when we provide feedback, we go through it. Yeah, they see the process, just like you said. Thank you so very much, Ceren. It's nice to see you here. It has been a very long time. Yasemin Hocam, Amanda Hocam, Asuman Hocam, thank you all.
Now we have another speaker, another concurrent speaker, Tuğba Vhıtehead, and her talk will be, I will just read the title. The title of her talk will be Two Preservice Teachers, Perspectives on Empowerment of Feedback Given by Several Educational Stakeholders. Yes, Tuğba Hocam, the floor is yours. You have 20 minutes.
Thank you so much, Sedat Hocam. Thank you so much for organizing this amazing event and hosting it. It is an honor to be here, and thanks so much, everyone, for coming here to listen to my presentation. Today, I will be talking about how and what kind of feedback given by different educational stakeholders empowers pre-service teachers. The two pre-service teachers in mention is me and my partner, Gizem. We wrote the abstract together, but afterwards she told me that she will not make it because of her hectic program. So there will be only me presenting. Well, then let's start with who am I? I am Tuğba Vhıtehead, and I studied foreign language education at Middle East Technical University. I am from Ankara, and now I have been living in Finland for 2 months. And I am planning to do my master's here, and I am interested in instructional design, actually any kind of design. And I realized my interest in instructional design thanks to a project that I joined last year when I was a pre-service teacher at Middle East Technical University. This project is called Flipped Impact Project, and the project is an ongoing international project funded by Erasmus+. And in this project, there are 4 international partners: Netherlands, Spain, Lithuania, and Romania. Every international partner works with a K-12 school to conduct their flipped lessons. And the Turkish team of this project is partnering with Meta Developmental Foundation schools, so to speak, Meta College. And last year, me and my partner delivered online flip lessons once a month from October to June. Let me introduce you who may want to remember or don't know what Philip teaching is. Philip teaching or learning is opposite to traditional teaching, where the lecture takes place in class and produced at home, namely doing their homework. But in Philip teaching, as the name suggests, you Philip your teaching and everything is vice versa. Lecture takes place at home and students work on the materials on their own at home, and they come to the class and produce, collaborate and interact with their peers and get immediate feedback from the teacher. So they gain a deeper understanding of the topic. But there is a serious workload for teachers because you need to prepare materials for pre-class, in-class, and post-class if needed. This is when we as pre-service teachers started getting feedback. My partner and I prepared materials for pre-class and in-class, and in this project we were only given the topics and everything except the topics were up to us. Me and my partner came up with a content and a theme. In each lesson for the pre-class lecture, we had an interactive video recorded by us and some activities for practice. For in-class, we focused on more interactive activities. When everything was done, we needed feedback. And in our case, the feedback givers, so to speak, educational stakeholders were students, pre-service teachers, namely us, and our mentors from K-12 school and the university. After we gave feedback to each other, we sent our lesson plan to our mentors to give us feedback. And after they gave us feedback, we adjusted our lesson plan accordingly. Then we sent our materials to students to work on them and came to the class prepared. At the end of the lesson, students were asked to fill out a Google form for the evaluation of the lesson, and also we did an exit ticket activity. In both ways, we had a chance to receive feedback about the lesson. After the lesson, the mentors shared their feedback about our teaching, both orally and written. And finally, we gave each other feedback according to our experience. From the bigger perspective, our feedback process model was like this. We acted, meaning preparing materials and delivering the Philip lessons, and we received feedback from different stakeholders, and we adjusted our teaching according to the feedback that we got. You can see that we were engaged in a cycle of feedback. I'm sure you are at the age of your seats wondering what kind of feedback did we receive from the stakeholders. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we received feedback from the mentors from K-12 school and the university 2 times. One before the class for the lesson plan and materials, and the other one after the class. After we prepared our lesson plans and materials and gave feedback to each other, we sent them to a WhatsApp group full of mentors. Since they had different backgrounds and experience in the field, we had a chance to improve on what we have missed during the material design. For example, while the faculty members spoke from a more theoretical background, the K-12 mentors were more focused on practical side of it. You can see the feedback messages here. And they focused on both positive and negative sides of the content. And if needed, they gave suggestions. In general, they gave feedback about whether our activities were interactive and how many activities we have or the activities are appropriate for the lesson and the students, whether the difficulty level of the lesson is appropriate for students' current level. And we were also given feedback on how differentiated our activities were and whether the activities included pair or group work. After they gave feedback, we redesigned our materials accordingly, and then we conducted our lesson under their observation on Zoom. While they were observing us teaching flipped on Zoom, they evaluated our teaching from every aspect, like our language use, how we motivated students, how we manage interaction and manage the classroom, whether we gave clear instructions or not. They rated our teaching in a Google form with Likert scale questions. You can see the pie charts. They are created by the answers collected with Likert scale questions. This made us see the general opinion about our teaching and what to focus on to improve or set a goal. For example, if we look at the pie charts on the screen, we can come to an idea that the difficulty level of the lesson was mostly at the right level. At the bottom, you can see the activities and materials were mostly appropriate for students' current level. And our students were quite motivated in our online flip lessons. And in the last chart, which is more colorful than the others, this shows that we made some mistakes while speaking in English. Besides this Likert scale, they also had a comment section, which made us see more specific feedback and suggestions along with it. They commented on the strong points and weak points of the lesson and how to improve our teaching. This was a good section because they told us what to continue doing and what to change. I can summarize a few points from here. We were told to give clearer instructions and design more differentiated activities. And then what did we do? We focused on trying to do these in the next lessons. Also, this comment part made us realize that everybody focused on different points of our teaching, and it helped us improving those aspects. The second most important stakeholder was students. And in practical lessons, when a Preservice teacher conducts a lesson, students' feedback generally are disregarded. To give feedback about many aspects about the lesson, we did Google Forms and sorry. At the end of the lesson, students were asked to fill out a Google form for data use required by the project, and also we did an executive activity, as I mentioned. They evaluated the lessons in terms of course satisfaction, difficulty level, as the mentors did, and amount of knowledge they gained, and whether they studied pre-class materials or not. From the comments here, we can understand that students like interacting with their peers and gamified activities. And this meant that we needed to continue doing that. And beside this form, we come to the exit ticket activities. And we did exit ticket questions so that we can see whether there is something unclear or not. If needed to give a mini lesson. And it was so important for us to see what students like the most and the least to make our lessons more engaging for them. Also, this way, they understood that their feelings and ideas were valuable. And actually, this exit ticket idea came from a mentor, and I started using it every time I teach. And now, last stakeholder that involved in the feedback process is, drumroll, peer feedback. Even though in the project giving peer feedback wasn't mandatory, me and Gizem thought that it would be really helpful for us to give each other feedback before everybody does. When we redesigned our materials and the lesson plans, we gave feedback to each other, redesigned when needed. Also, we reviewed the feedback from the previous lessons, not to make the same mistake again. Sometimes we made simulations like I told her the lesson to see if there was a problem with transition between activities or giving instructions. And it was really helpful to see some unexpected problems. And after we received feedback from students and mentors, we reviewed their feedback and evaluated every step of the lesson and set goals for the next lesson. When setting goals, we came up with strategies from the suggestions that we gave each other or the mentors gave for us. And now we've come to the last sentences of this presentation. As we were pre-service teachers, in other words, students teachers, we had a chance to look at the feedback from a student's perspective and a teacher perspective. As a student, we realized that no matter how much we are afraid of hearing negative aspects of our lessons, there were the most effective ones for us to improve ourselves. And we understood if you don't set goals or regulate yourself according to the feedback you got, it is really hard to improve yourself. And you need to focus on your goals and take a step further every time. Lastly, and from a teacher perspective, the feedback we were given by our mentors helped us to make the most out of our experiences and to understand strategies and reflect effectively on our practicum, which shaped the way we gave feedback to our students. Lastly, as a suggestion, as a last year's pre-service teacher, I miss those days, I can suggest to K-12 mentors who don't have time to give detailed feedback to pre-service teachers, they can make their peers or the other pre-service teachers or the students to give feedback on their lesson, and they should encourage giving both negative and positive sides of the lessons along with suggestions. And when we become a teacher, we shouldn't disregard our students' opinion because if they can't speak up their ideas or thoughts on the lesson, who should speak, right? Thank you so much, everyone. These are my references. It's not that much. Any questions?
Yes, thank you so much, Tuğba Hocam. Yes, do we have any questions? And again, I'd like to thank you for the timing. You still have 3 or 4 minutes,
Yeah.
but that's perfect. Thank you so much.
I think we can start with your session. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to join room 4 to listen to our presentation. And for the presentation and the beginning, I will give brief introduction about our topic backgrounds and the previous research related to it. Then my partner Tongyao will give an analysis about our topics. So let's begin. English is a tool of international communication and a resource. Many people across the world are attempting to learn English in and out of school. English is often needed to participate in global business and affords increased access to education institutions, especially those in the United States, England, Canada, and Australia. Yet, learning English can be difficult. Cross-cultural contexts require language learners have cross-cultural communication skills to cultivate competence and cultural awareness for socially appropriate people language usage. For this reason, language educators have long realized that multicultural education in language courses occupied an important position. In China, English textbooks play a central role in Chinese student English language learning because most teachers use textbooks to prepare courses as opposed to journal articles, popular prose writing, and novels. In this regard, students may learn cultural values through textbooks. because students are learning as well as those valued by the authors and the editors of these textbooks, which are directly and indirectly passed on to learners as a hidden cost. So it is necessary to investigate the type of cultural content and the appropriateness of cultural content organization in English textbooks. And according to previous research, textbooks are key competence in most language programs. In some situations, they serve as the basis for many language input learners receive and the language practice that occurs in classrooms. In details, textbooks provide a basis for the content of lessons, the balance of skills taught, and the kinds of language practice the students' engagement. A research regarding the use of textbooks, it is explained that textbooks are individual tools of English language teaching because they provide teachers and the students follow the structure, provide the educational teacher contents and the time-saving content, and also provide a source of ideas and methods. Also, textbooks have some value. There are still potential negative effects when using textbooks. Textbooks can provide learners to use untrue language that may contain distort content. They may ignore the needs of students or lack useful skills training. The book that suits the needs, interests, and abilities of both the learners and the teachers doesn't exist, which lead materials evaluation has gone attention from language experts and research. And still, it is an appealing field of study due to the advent of technological innovation that revolutionized the development of teaching materials, including textbook. Our expert defines the evaluation as a matter of drawing the fitness of something for a particular purpose. While considering the evaluation process in language teaching, the initial analyses are carried out to understand whether the textbook fits the curriculum or intended language programs. However, current analysis of the students by attending to their interests and abilities, and it should also be in agreement with the teaching style of teacher. That means the textbook not only should match students' interests and needs, but also suitable for teaching procedure. So in China, English textbook evaluation has in the process. Useful knowledge includes not only the students' desires and needs for understanding the course teaching, but also the students' education, cultural background, and expectations. Chinese learners often want to master knowledge, which can be obtained by listening to the teacher, study textbooks, learn grammar rules, learn vocabularies. The aim of learning English in Chinese students mainly focus on passing the tests. The feature that best defines the background of Chinese English education is a standardized testing system. For example, for most Chinese college students, the most important criterion is to pass a standard test, the College English Test, CET, an English language test for the following students in subjects other than English. Nowadays, the learning goals of college students in China have become diversified, such as studying abroad to improve their studies. In China, since these students' goals of learning English may not be achieved in the language curriculum, the national English curriculum has been scrutinized to find the source of students learning negative emotions and the reasons for pass the test. The general findings of those students indicate that one of the problems of the English curriculum is the widespread use of English textbooks as the syllabus and main guidelines for teachers. Some researchers have done content analysis and evaluated the English textbook by considering certain criteria, such as the problem with grading and the complexity of reading, listening, writing, or speaking, culture, and arousing students' motivation. Most of those findings revolved unsatisfactory results with regard to the way English textbooks present materials and learning objects. So that in the cultural perspective, textbooks still are the basis for teaching and learning in the content of China. The editors of English textbooks are still emphasize the students' understanding of the language or language system while ignoring the cultural level of solicitation. So in the future textbook research, more emphasis should be placed on the decomposition of the internal cultural aspects of the textbook, and more emphasis should be placed on helping students achieve the needs, expectations, and goals of learning English, and adapting to the various requirements of students in order to enhance students' interests in English learning. So for the next part, my partner Tongyao will give more information about our research and analysis.
Okay, thank you, Peng. And when students learn a foreign language, they also need to focus on the cultural learning. Cultural teaching is a very important part of the foreign language education, as it can develop students' cultural awareness and cross-cultural communication. He and Yang believes that if an English learner receives a cultural teaching during the learning process, has a strong cross-cultural awareness and relevant cultural knowledge, he or she will have a stronger communicative skill in speaking and writing English. And Liu conducted an experiment and found that the class taught by the foreign teachers have an average proportion of cross-cultural teaching in 33.865%, while local teachers only have 14.995%. And the class taught by the foreign teachers has higher average score. It can be known that the cultural teaching can play a certain role in improving the level of comprehensive English teaching. And some studies regard that the foreign language learning can be considered as the cross-cultural education, because the student learn not only linguistic competence, but also the culture of the society that use the language, which is learned in the foreign language class. However, cultural teaching is still missing from the traditional English education in China. In primary English education, He and Yang found that the English teacher focused on the teaching words, sentence, and grammar, but ignored to develop the cross-cultural awareness. This situation caused the student passively learn the English knowledge and become a dumb English learner. And this situation still exists in the college. Next, please. And one analyzes the text and textual themes of the New Concept English Book 2 and summarize the characteristic. According to his survey, New Concept English Book focused on the language learner, teaching English while conveying to the learner the customs and the traditions, and the value of native English speaker. In addition to this, you found that the Chinese students tend to learn the language by memorizing text, but the English textbook written in China cover too much text, which affect the learning efficiency. In contrast, the texts of NCE are carefully selected and have more interesting content, which can improve the students' learning efficiency. And while teaching using the NCE as the textbook, teachers should be aware of the importance of integrating culture into vocabulary instruction by expanding word and phrase in their context at the same time as the context and the cultural background. They should also introduce the cross-cultural contextual information incorporated in the text to simulate the students' interest naturally, instill the cultural concept into their mind, and increase their cultural sensitive. And some study advise the teacher can use the authentic video material as the system of teaching. It will help the development of the students' cross-cultural competence. The This video can be cartoon movie, advertisement, or music video, and so on, designed to immerse students in a foreign language environment. Then we turn to the research questions. This study aims to investigate the use of the New Concept English series of textbook among Chinese English learners and how this textbook engage and empower students. Since its introduction in China in 1997, New Concept English has remained a very popular English learning textbook, and many English learners from primary school to college will actively choose this textbook to study. Next. The methodology this study uses is the textual analysis. Any analysis of this book will necessarily to be selected because the limit of times and space prevent page-by-page analysis, and such an analysis would be burdensome for the reader at best. Thus, this paper analyzes the part of the books that explicitly and implicitly communicate cultural value without preference for where those communicative practices appear in the book, nor whether the book was intended for the student or the teachers. Next. Because the time limitation, we will give an example to illustrate. Take lesson 1 in book 1 example, for it is the first text that all learners using this book will learn. It is a conversation about a losing handbag. New Concept English focus on a handbag, commonly understood as a bag in which a person carries their wallet and other belonging. Synonym to handbag are pocketbook and purse. While seemingly innocuous, the start of the lesson with a bag designed to carry money, to write nothing about handbag culture and the explosion of the interest in designer bags and the cultural capital that owning a designer bag communicates. The focus on the handbag implicitly focused the student on not only a possession, but a possession used to carry money and the convenience status. However, many English learners are familiar with a story as a way to learn English, and no doubt remember story about two children playing, eating, and going about a day's business from the primary school. The opening conversation about handbag failed to achieve the progressively cultural education, and NCE here deflect the cultural factors and that don't help students really understand the culture. Next. Also, English textbook for the Western culture prefer to use a dialogue to learn, but NC, especially the middle and high-level textbook, use the essay instead of the dialogue. This may be said to meet the learning needs of the Chinese student who learn English mostly for exam, and reading article help them to accumulate vocabulary and sentence. And culture is conveyed in a subtle and not subtle way. New Concept English also places emphasis on mixed gender communication, which seems to emphasize both the nuclear family and the heterosexual relationship. Whether or not this is intentional, it is not questions, as the stereotypes are often expressed unknowingly. But one wonder what is the effect are this emphasis for the student who perhaps identify as non-binary, come from the single-parent household, or the members of the LGBTQ community. Next. The result of the analysis are these: the cultural education of NC is not similar to the native English speaker. And second one is the cultural education in NC is not progressively step by step. And the last one is the content express stereotype and affect the cultural diversity. And welcome Pengpeng introduce the last part.
Okay, according to our results, I would like to give some suggestions for teachers and students. Firstly, teachers need to seek additional resources such as BBC News or television program to enrich cultural education in the class. And when using New Concept English as a textbook, teachers should focus on dialogue with students rather than having them just recite the text. And for the perspective of students, students cannot rely entirely on textbook to learn foreign languages, but can also consider language learning apps such as Duolingo, to supplement more cultural education. And for the editor for the textbook, a better version of new concept English would be one that use more diverse pairings of parents and the children, as well as more diverse pairings of those in interpersonal contexts. So this is all of our presentation, and this is our references. So thanks for your attention. And if this is our content, and if you have future questions, please feel free to ask us. Thank you.
And thank you for your informative session, by the way. And also thank you for keeping to the time limit.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome everyone to room 5. In this concurrent session, we have Hakan Canger, and his presentation is Objective and Subjective Collocational Frequency, Association Strength Measures, and EFL Teacher Intuitions. Hakan Hocam, the screen is yours.
Thanks a lot, Hocam. It's really nice to be here, and thanks for the opportunity once again. Let me quickly start my presentation. So I'm a lecturer at Ankara University, but right now I'm teaching in Germany for some time. So, and I'm mainly interested in collocational processing and also its pedagogical implications, let's say. Okay, for those who are not very familiar with the concept of collocation, I've just given 2 examples, but I'll go deep into collocations, the definition of collocation, let's say. And this is the overview of my presentation. I'll give you a brief introduction, and then some literature will follow. And my aim, the method, results, and try to end with discussions and some implications, obviously. So as we all know, learning vocabulary in second language, me as well right now learning German, is a challenging process, and EFL learners need guidance of their teachers. And materials designers, the writers of the course books are also very important, because they provide the core content, the lists, the target vocabulary lists, the reading texts, on which, as teachers, we build our strategy for vocabulary teaching. Tomlinson suggests that materials designers, they generally rely on their own repertoire of texts and intuition, rather than use objective means when they form target vocabulary lists. And when it comes to objective means, the frequency profiles is considered to be one of those means to select the best vocabulary for EFL learners. And today, corpus tools, they provide us and also the materials designers with a unique opportunity to create vocabulary lists, which are empirically derived and also serving to the needs of our students. But a word of warning there, corpus software is not capable of creating word lists which are pedagogically appropriate. So human guidance also it's necessary for a fine grain and also pedagogically convenient word lists. So what do I mean by objective frequency and subjective frequency? Objective frequency is calculated based on the instances of lexical occurrences in a representative corpus, for example, British National Corpus or contemporary corpus of American English. And subjective frequency measures are generally, they are calculated based on subjective frequency ratings of a group of participants. So you ask the teachers, or L1 uses, how frequent you think those words or those word combinations are, and then they rate those words. And so far, research has indicated that these two measures, they kind of correlate to a moderate extent, and the strength of the relationship depends on the type of corpora from which we extract the profiles, frequency profiles, and also the educational background of the participants, of course. Okay, so why is frequency important? Let's also talk about that. According to Ellis, statistical regularities, they appear to abound in language, and we can claim that a language learner needs to internalize a huge amount of statistical knowledge, which includes lexical frequencies, lexical patterns, and so on and so forth. And frequency is seen as one of the strongest statistical information, first and also second and foreign language users are sensitive towards. And as Grice and Ellis explain, the frequency of a construction affects the probability of a language user's encounter, how much you experience that word, the strength of entrenchment, so how familiar you are with that word, and also the automaticity of processing, how easy for you to process that piece of language. Of course, in addition to single word frequency, collocational frequency, the influence of collocational frequency can be observed on native and also non-native language use. For example, in one of those psycholinguistic studies, Walter and Gilstad concludes that advanced L2 English users are sensitive towards frequency at the collocational level, and they had this claim based on their lexical reaction times. And to my knowledge, there are a limited number of studies in literature focusing mainly on intuitive word level and collocational frequency, and from the eyes of L1 or L2 users. Some literature, mainly there are correlational studies looking into this issue. In one of those, Smith and Dunham, they found a correlation, by the way, between the objective and subjective frequency ratings, let's say, and they stated that the education level of L2 users played a role in the intuition process, and educated L2 users frequency intuitions were better than L1 users with less education, so that kind of education is playing a key role here. Alderson, on the other hand, he found that the subjective frequency judgments of linguists didn't correlate with corpus extracted frequency measures. So in some contexts, even the L1 intuition may not be reliable, and so there are some contradictory results in the literature. In another study, McCross to look for the correlation between corpus output and ELT specialist intuitions in terms of frequency, and he found participants had difficulty judging the mid-level frequency words. So in that sense, they need guidance from some objective measures like corpora, for example. And Broza, he claimed that corpora didn't always give us a comprehensive picture of lexical frequency because they might lack our experience in real language use. And he found weak positive correlation between L1 intuition and also the corpus output. And what he recommended was merging those two measures to get more effective results. And Okamoto did a similar correlation study and suggested a hybrid approach for forming vocabulary lists. So there's a kind of a growing tendency in the literature towards the use of both measures, let's say, and because obviously they have the potential to complement one another. And we also know that vocabulary lists and our mental lexicons, they do not only consist of single words. So collocations, multi-word expressions, formulaic expressions, however you call them, they are very common in everyday language, and they are claimed to ease our L1 processing and also help L2 learners to sound more natural, of course. So there are different approaches to the definition of collocations, but here I follow a frequency-based approach, which comes from some statistical analysis based on corpora. So there have been certain attempts trying to highlight the relationship between objective frequency measures and subjective collocational frequency ratings of native and non-native speakers in the literature. For example, Sianova and Schmidt, they asked participants to rate the target collocations based on their commonness. How common you think those collocations are, they asked. And they concluded that native speakers' intuition correlated more strongly with BNC frequencies, British National Corpus frequencies, than non-native speaker intuitions. And it's for especially for low frequency collocations. Sianova and Spina also conclude that both native and non-native users of Italian are sensitive towards objective frequency profiles of collocations, which are represented in corpora. Chang and Dong, they also claim that L2 users' frequency intuitions correlate with the corpus frequencies, but for high frequency word combinations in particular. In a recent study I conducted, I also found a very strong correlation between L1 Turkish users' frequency intuitions and a specific collocational frequency measure, association measure, which was delta P. So overall, we can say that there's kind of a consensus towards the positive correlation between subjective frequency ratings of high frequency collocations in particular and objective measures. And there have been no attempts to investigate the relationship between subjective intuitions of EFL instructors and objective frequency measures of collocational items in the Turkish setting. So acquiring a language through collocations and chunks seems to foster and accelerate second language learning, and it gives us a processing advantage, according to Lewis. And we know that collocations are recurring patterns in language use, and we can prove that by referring to corpora and using some statistical measures like mutual information, T-score, and we can classify them under the heading of formulaic language, according to Schmidt. But again, like I said before, corpus frequency may not always reflect individual experiences of a certain lexical item. So we may need to merge these to get more, let's say, to design a corpus-driven and a pedagogically convenient word lists. So my overall aim in this research study was to create a corpus-informed and pedagogically convenient word list, or to see if we can do that, and also contribute to the growing body of collocational frequency intuition research by exploring the relationship between subjective and objective frequency measures. I got 51 instructors of English, so they were kind of experts in the fields, ELT specialists. And I used an online questionnaire to get the ratings from the instructors, and also used a reference corpus, British National Corpus, as my baseline to extract the association measures. I mean the statistical information. So I had 50 collocations, 25 adjective noun, 25 verb noun. Those are the commonly taught ones in course books. I chose them from 2 intermediate EFL course books. And those course books are, again, very commonly used in the, let's say, in the tertiary level schools in Turkey. The reference corpus was BNC. I designed a very basic online questionnaire to get the subjective judgments of the participants. They just rated the frequency based on their intuitions. And I calculated some statistical analysis to detect association measures. So association measures overall, they indicate how strongly words are linked together, how strongly they trigger one another. Okay, so this is a kind of a detailed issue to discuss, so I'm gonna leave it here. But if you want to read more, Gablasova and her friends has a nice presentation about that, as a nice lecture about that. So I'm going to direct you to that that article. So these were descriptive frequency values and association measures in my study. a very overall view of the intuition scores from 1 to 5, and also the association measures in 3 different, let's say, calculations. Right, when it comes to the results, I mean, the correlations, first of all, I detected a correlational, a positive correlation between intuition scores and T-score and MI2 score, and they were positive correlations. So it means when intuition goes up, the frequency or the association measure T and MI2 go up. So they kind of go hand in hand, in other words. But I couldn't find a correlation for the adjective noun combinations, collocations, and this might be something which needs to be studied further, maybe. Okay, so what I understood from that was corpus-based frequency and EFL instructors' collocational frequency intuitions, they correlate positively, but particularly for verb-noun collocations. So they were kind of more sensitive towards verb-noun collocational frequency represented at a corpus composed of text and speech by native speakers of English. So because we found correlation for only verb-noun collocations, I mean, we may go and speculate that nouns are better cues for verbs than maybe they are for adjectives in the ELT lexicon, and which may result in a stronger entrenchment for verb-noun pairs, but still needs to be studied further, of course. And I built a regression model where I kind of tried to investigate the best predictor of intuitive ratings, let's say, and then again found that the T-score was a good predictor of the intuitive scores. The analysis shows that T-score is a significant predictor of frequency intuition, and by itself, it explains more than 40% of the variance, I would say. So participants of my study have a tendency to rate higher frequency collocations more accurately. So this was one of the findings. So it was kind of closer to objective corpus frequency. So I can say humbly that in intuitions and corpus output, they overlap to a certain extent. But of course, we need further evidence for stronger claims. Maybe we might want to do this study with more adjective noun collocations to see what is causing that difference, or maybe we can integrate some collocations with lower frequency. This might show us a different picture, and also the effect of congruence. So maybe the overlap between their first language and second language, it's also playing a role, but that variable wasn't in my study, so needs further analysis, I think. So corpora, they are the most trusted tools in deciding the frequency of words or collocations because they are claimed to provide an objective account of vocabulary profiles, and their results are reliable. But we must also say that corpora have their limitations because sometimes, or most of the time, they may not mirror L1 users' individual experiences, and they fail to reflect L2 learners' exposure to language. So, as Jones and Durand also rightly mentions, we need to be cautious with coursebook writers' preferences for target vocabulary and learner and native speaker experience may not be reflected in the coursebook. So we can claim that textbook designers and also language schools may need to exploit representative corpora and also consult L1 user intuitions or experts like language instructors' intuitions as a complementary step. Because as we saw, there's somewhat an overlap between instructors' intuitions and also the corpus output. It's commonly accepted that multi-word units such as collocations is an important aspect of vocabulary learning and vocabulary teaching. Materials need to be adapted and extended to include them. So studies in this regard, they state that acquiring words in chunks help L2 users sound more native-like and helps them enjoy a processing advantage while using the language, which requires great mental flexibility. So my claim is that if certain words are highly associated in the native mind, as evidenced by their vocabulary choices, and the output from the corpus, and if the native speakers enjoy a processing relief by using these formulas, then these word combinations, expressions should be targeted in language teaching materials to help L2 learners master the language and use it in a natural sense, naturally. Wang and Koda, they also state that ESL instructors' frequency intuitions can also be consulted and trusted more than corpora, composed of text and discourse for native speakers, particularly when designing ESL, EFL teaching materials or constructing vocabulary lists. So as a final word, I can say that we need a corpus-informed and a pedagogically sound method to design vocabulary teaching materials and target vocabulary lists. So I'm hoping studies like this one can guide decision makers in schools in constructing their vocabulary syllabi and designing materials for teaching collocations. But of course, I should also note that studies exploring other lexical items or multi-word expressions are needed. Further analysis is needed to reach more conclusive results. And I've published this article in one of these journals. So if you want to cite this, here's the reference. And here are my references. Thanks a lot. I think I'm on time, Hocam.
Thank you, Hakan Hocam. You created a miracle. you finished on time, and it was a very interesting study. Definitely, we would like to see the whole article, because these articles are, for visual people like me, definitely worth reading and taking notes, and and we can always further the study and come up with our own lists. And it was really enlightening. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, Hocam. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
for listening.
And participants, thank you very much. We have another session after a 10-minute break. So hope to see you in the other sessions. Okay. Take good care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.